What is a deficit? A deficit is when the government spends more money than it takes in revenues. How can it do that? It does that by borrowing from people who have lots of money. Rich creditors, banks, financial institutions, and the like, floating government bonds. The national debt is the accumulation of these yearly deficits. Deficits and debts accomplish several things for rich conservatives. First, the debt is a source of safe investment and income for the creditor class. The bonds, those U.S. bonds you buy, you have the full faith and credit of the federal government behind them. It's a safe investment. And yet one of the things with people with billions of dollars is, what do they do with it? What do I put it into? Where can I put it, you know? That it'll be safe, or that it'll make me a return, like. The second thing is that deficits and debts represent an upward redistribution of income from the millions who work to the rich investors. Because what happens is these investors lend billions of dollars every year to the U.S. government, and we, the people, the taxpayers, have to pay them back at interest that accumulates and accumulates and accumulates and grows. So we're borrowing from the people. The U.S. government is borrowing from the people who they should be taxing. Instead, they cut their taxes, and then they borrow money from them that we then have to pay them. So more and more of our federal budget is being privatized. That's the third function of debt and deficit. That in effect, you're privatizing the federal budget. A larger chunk of it is going every year to pay off rich creditors. Not for schools, not for hospitals, not for education, not for environmental protection, not for the Forest Service, not for rural electrification, not for housing, blah, blah. No, it's going to pay off rich creditors. The larger the debt, the larger the portion of your tax dollars that goes to the creditors. And fourth, finally, these huge deficits, $500 billion in George W. Bush's budget this year, $500 billion. These huge deficits become an excuse to cut the public sector services. We can't afford all these other silly luxury things like aid to disabled children. Right? Our governor right here, Muscles, didn't he just do that? His first act as governor of California was to cut the program to disabled children. We just, oh, I'm sorry, but we just have to do it. Well, through much of history, then, the leaders of a capitalist state have been concerned with three things. First, to extract surplus value from the labor of the people, extract wealth, all the things I've just been saying, from the many, putting it in the coffers of the few. This whole process I'm describing, loan guarantees, export subsidies, well, it's all part of capital accumulation. Second function of the state is to protect that entire system of accumulation and upward redistribution. Keep the entire system of class control and class exploitation intact, suppress resistance and dissident elements, and when that becomes too difficult, then grant concessions, incorporate changes into a new synthesis that helps the overall capitalist system to remain intact, but with a slightly more equitable distribution of wages and wealth. That's not class oppression, that's called class struggle, when people fight back and they make certain gains, and the guys at the top say, whoa, this is really getting hot, we better give in on this, better give in on that. This second function, though, the systemic function of systemically maintaining this system of expropriation, is achieved with symbolic manipulation, informational control. I have water here already. Police state repression, control of the law and the courts and other auxiliary institutions. There's a third function that the capitalist state has. And this is the one I find very interesting, because I think it's really being overlooked by the reactionaries who are in power today. They're called conservatives. I don't get it. Why? A conservative, if someone, is someone who does not want any kind of change because he doesn't want any infringement on his powers and his privileges. These guys want change all over the place. They call them reforms, but they want rollbacks. They're changing everything. They want to get rid of Social Security. They want to get rid of environmental controls, the Clean Air Act, the Fresh Air. He's undermining the wetlands bills. He's undermining through executive orders, through reinterpretations. He's going at it one way or the other. They're rolling it all back. They learned from the Newt Gingrich days that if you try to do it in all one fell swoop, a Republican revolution, wipe it all out, yay, that can backfire. And even among your own Republicans, there are people who say, whoa, wait a minute, I like fresh air, clean air. And Gingrich had that happen. He had these ranchers writing in and said, what are you doing to the environment, you crazy jackass? So now what they do it is by peace, 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 peace. But they're reactionaries, that's what they are. And these reactionaries have forgotten the third function. And that is, the third function of the capitalist state is to protect the owning class from itself, to protect it from its own avarice, to see that the parasite doesn't destroy the very organism upon which it battens. The capitalist state must keep the capitalist class from devouring itself. And we see that was happening with Enron, WorldCom, Halliburton, Harkin. The activist element of the investor class literally expropriating not only taxpayers and workers, but other investors. So, hey, why worry about producing cars and refrigerators? Then you got to worry about trying to sell them and this and that and make a profit. Let's just go where the money is. Just tap into streams of money. Let's go. Who has money? Investors, pension funds, 401ks, all this stuff. Let's go and steal money from them. And they have been caught plundering investor income, billions of dollars. Many of these investors, of course, are small investors too, life pensions and all that. And this is a real crime. I mean, this is really now being looked at. And some of these guys are going to have to do hours of community service. I mean, I'm getting really tough here, boy. I mean, you think I'm kidding. Look at Argentina. Do you remember what happened in Argentina a few years ago? I mean, I thought there was a case of the failure of the capitalist state to protect itself against capitalism. All of the people's pensions and monies and funds and everything, Argentina, this investor class went in there and stole. You don't understand, you're dealing with people who are insatiable. You're dealing with people who are absolutely ruthless. We are dealing with addicts. It's not true that coke or heroin is the worst addiction in America, or cigarettes or alcohol. The worst addiction, the most crippling, the most damaging addiction is wealth. These people are just out of control. They just want more and more and more. And they're not unlike the ruling classes of all history. If the ruling classes of all history have ever wanted anything, there's only one thing they've ever wanted, and that's everything. They want all the lands, all the choice crops, all the herds, all the rich mineral deposits. They want control of all the labor, all the markets. They want all the civilities and comforts and luxuries of civil society while paying none of the costs. They want everything. And then when they got everything, they want still more. They want gold chalices to drink out of. They want $1,000 bills to light their cigars. They want, of course, the ruling class has learned since the days of the robber baron, they're not as crass and crude about it. But they are just as ruthless in their dedication to this accumulation.